Okay, we're getting ready. Hopefully, we've been working with limits algebraically. Pretty soon, we're going to introduce the actual mathematical definition of what a limit is. And before we do that, there's just a couple things you need to make sure that you're clear on. First thing is an absolute value. If I want to remove the absolute value bars on this is what this is going to look like. Okay, and likewise, if I want to, if I have something like this, and I want to remove the absolute value bars, I'm going to end up with another inequality. Now I can even solve for x. This is just an inequality, just like any other one. It's just that usually by the time you get to this definition, you'll find that you might have forgot a couple things, and it's not really a big deal. So we can do a couple things and just notice how we started. We found out that for this inequality to be true, x has to be, well actually let's just think about this. Let's just go with x equals 0. Well, 0 certainly falls between 10 and -2. So if I go 0 minus -4, I end up getting the absolute value of -4 being less than 6. And we know that the absolute value of 4 is 4, and that's certainly less than 6. Okay? So go ahead, familiarize yourself with that. The next thing you need to know is this absolute value bar. Really, this is just a distance, isn't it? Okay? Just like if I had 3 minus 2, okay, you would say that that's equal to 1 unit. And likewise, if I started at 1 minus 5, I would end up with the absolute value of -4 again. Okay, so let's just put that on the number line. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, actually here's 1, and here's 5. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, there's still 4 units in between there. You know, right here, right here, right here, and right here. So no matter what happens, if I took 1 minus 5 or 5 minus 1, the absolute value of both of those are going to be 4. Okay, and that's pretty important. So let's say I had a graph right here. I'm just going to draw a very crude graph, and let's say that I had, here was f of x. Okay. This is just, you know, some wacko function. And then I have something else called L, okay? Let's just call it this thing L. Now I'm actually going to zoom in here a little more. So, what would this distance in between here be called, okay? This would basically, you could call this f of x minus L, okay? And that would equal the distance in between those two things, okay? And likewise, if I came up with this distance, we'll just call it d, okay, this is d, then this value is still okay, it's just that this is f of x minus L, and this is f of x plus L, okay? But the distance itself is still d, okay? So we're just we need to just kind of touch base on a couple of those things and just notice that you know, a couple things about that. Furthermore, what happens as d approaches 0? Okay, what happens as d approaches 0? Well, as d approaches 0, now, I'm not talking about f of x going to 0. I'm not talking about L going to 0. I'm talking about d. As d goes to 0, this starts getting closer and closer, doesn't it? Okay, D is getting smaller and smaller. Now here's my new D, okay? Okay, it's getting smaller and smaller. See what's happening? Here, you know, now here's a kind of a zoom in right here. Here's D. Okay, and it's approaching 0. So little by little, we're kind of narrowing the gap there. All right, so that's another thing that you need to be kind of aware of. The third thing that I really want to make sure you also are comfortable with is that the limit okay, this is the limit as x goes to 2 of x squared. Well, we know the limit is equal to 4, okay? But this doesn't necessarily mean that the function is equal to 4. In this case, yes, it is, okay? But just remember, this function, the actual function, the function f of x approaches 4. So the limit is equal to 4. So if the function approaches 4, then the limit is equal to 4, okay? If the function approaches 4, then the limit is equal to 4. I just said it again, okay? It's really important that you kind of make that distinction, okay? If the function approaches 4, then the limit is equal to 4. Okay, that sort of thing. So just remember, you know, that's you know, we're not looking what actually the function's value is at 4. Okay, because it may or may not be 4. I mean, in this case it is, but just remember that we're looking for the limit. We're not evaluating the function, okay? And that's the last thing I want to go with. So, just a quick review of these topics real quick, because we're going to use them here in the next video. You need to be able to decode an absolute value, and you need to know that this is just a distance, okay? And, you know, just graphically, we kind of look at it right there, all right? See you in the next video.